Guten Morgen, meine Damen und Herren. Mein Name ist Jamie Pearson und ich bin CEO von Bhang Inc. Vor 25 Jahren habe ich an der Uni Wuppertal Deutsch studiert. Ich habe einen Deutschkurs gemacht, aber wohne ich jetzt in Montana. Ich bin da geboren und ich spreche Deutsch ganz selten. Deshalb spreche ich heute mein ganzes Gespräch auf Englisch. Ich freue mich, hier in Berlin zu sein und will vielen Dank an Alex und die ganze ICBC-Team sagen. For those of you who don't speak German, 25 years ago I took a German class at the University of Wuppertal. I speak a little bit of German. Like Alex just said, I don't get enough practice, so I'm going to spare you my German today. But I want to thank Alex and the ICBC team for giving us a chance to be here together, and also for putting this amazing conference together. I think this is probably my 15th ICBC conference. I've done them in Zurich, in Berlin, San Francisco, Kauai, and Barcelona. I've been on many panels and had the opportunity to see what this conference has done for cannabis around the world. And it's really remarkable. And what I'd really like to have everyone do is give the ICBC crew a hand. Yeah. And then what I would like you all to do is really look around this room, look at who's in this room. It's a lot of men. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. There's a lot of men here. But I want you guys to look around and see who the people are that you're working with that are changing the world, because that is what we're doing here in cannabis. All right. Oh, clicker. There we go. Randall. There we go. Bhang went public in July of 2019. In December of 2019, Bhang's founder and CEO stepped down, and the board asked me to step in and accept the permanent president CEO role. Having been a real estate investor for 25 years, I'm really comfortable in the investment environment. I'm comfortable with deal flow. I'm comfortable sitting around a table full of men, talking about finances, looking over balance sheets and P&Ls. So I didn't have any problem saying yes, because I also had been working at Bhang for about 5 years at that point, and I'd been in the cannabis industry for about 7 years at that point and really felt comfortable in accepting that role. What I didn't have was capital markets experience. Oh, wrong direction. What Bhang has are some really great partners. One of the partners I have is here with me today. His name is Sean Conacher. He's over there. He's with Plant-Based Investment Corporation, which is a publicly traded company on the Canadian Stock Exchange. And they are an investment company that puts investments together for plant-based and actually fungi-based. They're doing some mushroom stuff too. So I was fortunate because my company had the backing of a really strong partner. And then in the meantime, I had been putting deals together with companies like Trulieve. They're on the CSE. How many of you, raise your hands, have heard of Trulieve? They're I think they're the largest North American cannabis company, and they're one of the only profitable ones. We have a deal with Indiva in Canada. And I am here doing this conference and Zurich because I'd like to bring Bhang into Europe with our THC products. So we started 11 years ago. We were born in Oakland. Our founder was a master chocolatier, European-trained chef de cuisine, and the chocolate that we've been putting in the marketplace is European quality. Now, I have some Swiss people out there that want to challenge me, and I brought some chocolate. I smuggled it in, and you're on. Here we go. This is where I'm from. This is Absaroka, Montana. Right now, it's got 1,000 people, but when I grew up there, it had 800 people. Little small town, about an hour from the next. We had a grocery store, but if we really wanted to go shopping, we had to drive an hour away. And that's the view from the ranch where I grew up, and my parents still live there. So I was really lucky to grow up in a place that's so beautiful. And also, I have this affinity for Germany and this connection to Germany. And I work for this great company, and so life is pretty good, but I'll tell you, it's really good to be Bhang. Because after I took over 2 years ago, we cleaned a few things up, we got a really strong balance sheet, we've got great financials, we've got amazing products, 11 years of history, putting millions of chocolate bars in people's hands. And people then say to me, how did you get into cannabis? And I say, I was born. I'm 52, my dad's 71. He's been growing cannabis for 56 years. That's him in his outdoor grow. I don't know if you can see my face. That's me in his indoor grow. Dad, dear old dad, he's a Vietnam vet, PTSD, doesn't drink, but uses cannabis. It makes him feel better. So I grew up in an environment where cannabis was normal. And then my first cousin on my mom's side is DJ Muggs from Cypress Hill. And that's him getting the star on the Walk of Fame a couple years ago. Also, a cannabis activist. How many of you have heard of Cypress Hill? Yeah, insane in the membrane. He and I are the same age. We raised our kids together. And he asked me to do a deal for him in cannabis. We'd been investing in real estate together for about 15 years at that point. So when it was time for Cypress to get back into the industry, he came to me and said, would you help us find a deal that is good for Cypress? So I went out and that's what I did. That's when I jumped into the industry. But these are my two kids, Jens and Alicia. We call her Lisi. Lisi's here right now. She's going to Spain for her senior year of college, and she thought she'd stop and watch Mom give a talk. And yeah, that was skeet shooting. So she's like, do you think they'll be mad if they see me with a gun? I'm like, no, nobody's gonna care. My kids are Gen Zennials. I don't know if you guys know what that means, but they were born in that really weird spot where they know what a phone book is. They know how to dial a rotary phone. And, so it's the analog world that they were born into. But the digital world caught up to them, and now they're in the digital world. They're not quite millennials. They're not Gen Zers. They're right in that middle, which gives me an advantage because they teach me a lot. So Muggs asked me to get into cannabis because I was doing real estate, and I came from that little small town. And what happened was I have these two athletes, and I didn't want to tell anybody I was working in cannabis. I was scared that there would be blowback on my kids. How many of you in this room have a little bit of doubt or sometimes take a beat before you say, I'm in cannabis? Because there's a stigma to it. A few of you, yeah. I mean, it's a little bit uncomfortable because we work in this world where we haven't quite, as a world, accepted cannabis. We're still in prohibition in the United States. And so I was careful about what I would say so that my kids didn't have any blowback. But the really interesting thing is, so that's them, that Zennial thing. But as you get farther on into this graph, what you'll find is that not only are the kids growing up with technology, but they're growing up in a world where cannabis is normal. For this generation, there is no stigma. And they wonder what's wrong with us because we're fighting about legalization. Because we know that we've been using cannabis for millennia. Literally, they are finding elements of cannabis in the pyramids of Egypt. And we just had the FDA skip phase 3 clinical trials and let Pfizer have approval on that vaccine, but we can't get cannabis legalized. And our kids are wondering, what is wrong with you adults? Our world's on fire. The planet is shaking us off like a wet dog because we've not done this very well for them. And I think this generation is wanting us to wake up. And that's why I think my kids make me better at my job. So I get in the cannabis industry 7 years ago, and I didn't tell anybody what I did, and then High Times outed me. And they named me the most influential woman in cannabis, one of them in 2018, and the most influential woman in cannabis in 2019, and asked me to give a speech, and it went viral. And the next thing I knew, everybody in my little town knew what I did. And when I go home sometimes, Some people cross the street when they see me coming. It's interesting. Canophobia is alive and well, and that's what I'm here to talk about. Because I shouldn't be afraid to tell people what I do. Bhang has been we've put millions of chocolate bars in consumers' hands in 9 US states. We are the #1 chocolate in Canada. And in 2020, last year, we were the #1 SKU in Ontario, meaning Bhang milk chocolate sold more units than any flour or pre-roll in the province of Ontario. Now, flour and pre-rolls sold more than edibles. So what do you call it? Basically, flour and pre-rolls sell more than edibles, but not one flour and not one pre-roll sold more than Bhang chocolate. So we're out there kicking butt. We're out there doing deals with Trulieve, and we're putting chocolate in people's hands, and they feel better when they use our products. I get emails from people saying, I haven't slept like this since I started using your product. People are using it for seizure disorders, for anxiety, and I've got a product that actually improves people's well-being. And what am I worried about when I stand proud and say, I'm the CEO of an edibles company? And it's because we've got this stigma that we're fighting. And I think improving people's well-being is something that should make you feel important. And everybody in this room should commit to feeling important, that what we're doing is changing the world. So I had an epiphany the other day, which is why I chose this talk. I went to a conference and I heard in fact, I was at the Global Investment Forum yesterday, and what people were focused on was money. Oh, this company's doing this many $1 million. Germany's the 3rd largest cannabis market in the world. $30 billion is the size of the U.S. market. $200 billion is the size of the U.S. illicit market. So there's this big gap between what's actually happening, which is lots of people are using cannabis, and what we're really willing to talk about. What we're really willing to talk about is money. That's what we prioritize. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. The products that we're putting in people's hands are helping veterans with PTSD or helping people with Parkinson's. They're making the world feel better. And we're talking about money. And it brought me to the realization that that's what is wrong with this world. That's why our world is on fire. We know that hemp cleans the soil. We know that it takes 2,700 liters of water to make a single cotton t-shirt, when it doesn't cost that much water to make a hemp t-shirt. But what we're gonna do is keep making cotton t-shirts when we're sending pallets of them to Africa. We don't need any more t-shirts, but we wanna make more money because that's what we value. And my kids and that generation, we're gonna cost them this planet. We're costing them this planet. So I think the people in this room need to understand that this isn't something we're doing for money. This is something we're doing for money, and it's something we're doing for well-being. And what I'll tell you is that the conservatives in America, I'm sure you guys all from across the pond look at us and wonder, what are we doing? We put that he who shall not be named into the presidency, and a whole bunch of weird stuff happened after he got there. But what we all knew and what we all expected is that he was going to put a focus on the economy. He did not put a focus on well-being. We're trying to do that now. Cannabis is a gateway to wellness, to Wohlgefühl, to well-being. It's going to clean our air. It's going to clean our soil. It's going to help our bodies. It's going to help our communities. So I'm here giving all of us a call to action to start prioritizing well-being versus money. In Germany, you guys are in the greatest position to do it. Yes, this is for 2024. Right now, Germany is still the 2nd largest cannabis market, the 3rd largest cannabis market by spending, which is amazing because you don't have recreational cannabis yet. Imagine what's going to happen with the population density of Europe when recreational cannabis is passed. And look, we all already know everybody's using it. So all of the politicians here, let's stop pretending that this is about money. Your citizens are using cannabis. But you people, who I love so much, I came over here and studied your language. I have 2 children that are dual citizens of Germany. They hold your passport. I come here, I have family here. I love this place. And what I love is how when I was here and get a sinus infection, the doctor says, oh no, you can't have antibiotics. You have to try a plant-based medicine first. You need to get your nutrition in order. You need to get your exercise in order. There's this focus on Wohlgefühl here that we don't have in America. You have Mutter-Kind-Kur. You can go to a spa if you're feeling a little stressed out. I love that. I love your culture. And what you guys can do is help us make this type of transition, because you can be the example for the world. You already are. We already talk about German engineering. We already talk about precision. We already know that your politics are set up to not be played one party against each other. You guys are really poised to come in and be the example of what's right. And if anybody wants this slideshow, I'll just come up to me and I'll just give you a copy. Now, we've got a model already that exists, and it's the sin countries, Scotland, Iceland, New Zealand. How many of you know what I'm about to tell you about these sin countries? Nobody. Okay, well, here we go. The sin countries formed a union in 2017, and they agreed to stop using GDP as their measure for the success of their economy. What they use is the well-being of their citizens. And so what they have done is created a measure of how the economy is doing. It's not just the gold and silver reserves. It's not just the output of work or the goods and services that are being produced. It's things like access to green space, the happiness of children, access to housing. None of that's measured in GDP. They do measure the illicit drug trade. They don't measure unpaid care in GDP. But these countries decided, wait a second, we're confusing activity with results. The results of the economy should be the well-being of its people. Would we not agree that that's pretty basic? But none of us do it. I don't think it's a surprise that the 3 prime ministers of these countries are women. They also happen to be crushing the COVID response. The death toll in these countries has been very, very low because they're prioritizing well-being. Nicola Sturgeon gave a viral TED Talk, and she said, you know what we choose to measure as a country matters? Because it drives political focus, public activity, and in the end, if the activity of the economy is killing the earth, oh well, we created more money. And she's saying, look, what we have to do is we have to do better for our people. And the well-being is the measurement that matters. So we're going to take a poll here. How many of you know who Robin Hood is? Oh, this is one where almost all the hands go up. Okay, great. So I have a question for you. We're going to say, do you think Robin Hood is gaming, or do you think it's democratization? Raise your hand if you think Robin Hood is gaming the investment system. And there's no right or wrong answer, because it's kind of both. And how many of you think Robin Hood is actually democratizing investing? Okay, can we try this again? Because I'd like to see all of your hands go up. I want to know one or the other. Do you think that Robin Hood is democratizing investment, or do you think that it's gaming, teaching kids how to game their money? So, all in favor of it's gaming? A few of you. All in favor of democratization? Okay, I guess some of you are still asleep. Robinhood has 20 million users, and the average user has a $3,500 worth of assets under management. The biggest online trading platform is E-Trade. They have 5.2 million users with an average of 100,000 assets under management. So obviously, E-Trade's doing $420 billion worth of trade. That's just retail, whereas Robinhood is doing about $80 billion. But what I will tell you is 20 million people are involved in the trading platform, and how many of you saw what they did to GameStop? What my kids did to GameStop, because believe me, my kids got into that. They were all about it. And what this generation is doing, while I was playing Pac-Man and cruising that little main street that you saw, my kids are on their phone talking about their cryptocurrency, and they're talking about, oh, should we get into the AMC play? I would say that's democratization, but what's really interesting, and what I sat back in my minivan while they're in the back talking, and they're talking about Reddit, and they're talking about Twitter. And as the CEO of a public company, and I'm supposed to be running an IR/PR campaign, and I've got these big companies like, Stockhouse and, the places where you all go to learn about stocks want me to write $25,000 a month checks to get my stock in front of you. And what I realize is, if I go on Reddit or if I go on Twitter and these kids start following me, I might get 20 million kids invested in my stock, and believe me, they love cannabis. They're gamers, they're cannabis users, and cannabis is normal for them. So I'm thinking to myself, I got to engage with these young people. They are our future. The median age of our citizens on this planet right now is 28.9 years old. The median age. That means the majority of the people on this planet have cell phones. They get their information from technology. This group of youth that are coming up, that we are now building an industry for, they have some expectations. They have watched us prioritize money over everything. They've watched us send two billionaires to the space. We know what technology can bring us. Imagine what would happen if we prioritized as adults in this world the pursuit of well-being over the pursuit of money. What would we come up with? Because, man, we're capable of anything. And I'll tell you what these kids expect from us. And after watching GameStop, where they took a company that had no fundamental value and they saved it, and then they crushed the capital markets people that had put positions or that were playing that short, they know how to do that, and they did it. And what they're going to do is they're going to figure out how to talk on Reddit and Twitter, and they're going to figure out how to get what they want out of us. And I say, why don't we just engage with them? Why don't we join forces with the youth? Here's what they want. They get all their information from their phones and their computers, and they have a fundamental distrust of the government. What's the government doing for them? What's the government doing for any of us, really? And I'm curious to see how they're going to hack the government, because I don't mean like literally hack it, but how are they going to make things happen the way they want them? And what they're doing is cancel culture. If they don't like you, or if you are not authentic or you are not telling the truth, they will out you and you will be done. So how about we start listening to them and start telling the truth, start being authentic, and start prioritizing well-being of the humanity and the planet. And we are in the right industry for this, because we are operating in prohibition. We can make this world look any way we want. We can do things like demand that the stock exchanges require women and people of color be on boards, and young people, for example. We can require that in one swoop of a pen. We could change the way the world works. Authenticity. My kids have been marketed to since they were born. Think about when they get on a program and they see somebody put product placement. They know they're getting paid for that. What they want is to hear the truth. They want to follow interesting people, and they want to follow authentic people. So if you've got a brand or you've got a company out there, make sure that you're communicating to the world in a way that's very authentic. You'll make it if you are. They want us to be planet friendly. They're watching us, and they want to know what the impact on the earth is of our products. The good news is, if we're in cannabis, if we're not trying to grow cannabis in cold climates, which I think is weird, you don't grow corn in warehouses in Canada to make candy, right? The sun is going to be the way we make cannabis. And once that becomes the norm, because most of the cannabis that is being sold in America right now, what's really hot is all the concentrates. Well, it doesn't matter what the cannabis looks like. And ultimately, fluffy buds are the better ones anyway. But they want to know, what is your impact on the world? And they want to know, are you being innovative? Are you upcycling? They don't want to see the landfills filled with plastics anymore. They don't want to see the oceans filled with plastics anymore. And we shouldn't be doing that anymore. So I honestly, as the CEO of Bhang, I do things like, I have people of color on my board. I have gay people on my board. My executive team is diverse. We only use sustainable packaging. We're making decisions because I feel like knowing this and that this is the people that are coming up to buy my products, it's malpractice when I don't do it because I'm putting my company at risk because the people coming into the cannabis industry that are going to be buying our products, they care about this stuff, and we should too. So I have been asked, that's me up in the top right there, I'm part of this group of women CEOs in cannabis, and we call ourselves jokingly the Female Cannabis Mafia. And Kirsten Gillibrand is a friend of one of our cohort members, and so she calls us, we have a call, and they ask us to give them advice about how to make this legalization happen. The Democrats really believe that cannabis legislation is going to be groundbreaking for a couple of reasons. One is the way politics normally works is monopoly money. Oh, we got this big budget over here for military. Let's steal some of that budget and put it over here for education. And then the Republicans come in and they give the money back to military, right? Cannabis is a new bucket of money. And we can pull it out of the illicit market and put it into the economy. Here I am talking about money. But we can do it in a way that's responsible. So I'm telling Senator Gillibrand, you know what I think you guys should be doing? You should be talking to young people. Don't underestimate them. This one says, hi, Mom and Dad. They're forcing me to write, but they can't make me tell you anything. This is a little girl writing from camp. This is the mentality of our youth. They are not to be underestimated. So here's my calls to action for the Germans in the room, for the Europeans, and for everybody in cannabis. Number one, let's change the narrative from money to well-being. Let's talk about, and if you can't stop talking about money, that's fine, but add well-being to your repertoire. Cannabis makes people feel better. Second of all, when somebody is spouting things that are not facts, oh, it's a gateway drug. Oh, people get psychosis. All of the things that we know are not true. And you sit there and bite your tongue. Don't bite your tongue. Challenge these inaccurate narratives and these untested assumptions. Be brave in public. Be bold. Be courageous. And here's the one thing I want to say to the Germans. You all know who our brands are. People say to me, oh, Bhang, I know your brand. I don't know a single German brand. The third largest market in the world, I don't know if you have brands, if you're building brands, but if you are, start buying American cannabis media. Start going to places like Cannabis Now and Weed Maps and let us know who you are so that we can start watching you as an example. Because I believe you can be a great example of all the things I've talked about. I love this country because you do prioritize wellness. And then I'd like to see all of us engage our youth. We should all have a young person on our advisory boards. We should have young people telling us what they want, and we should be listening to them. Thank you.
Jamie Pearson. One more time for Jamie Pearson. That was great. It's fantastic.